Chapter 76. Kara. I make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and getting too wrapped up in trying to achieve perfection can end up being harmful. However, it seems that lately my little mistakes are really starting to pile up in the too much to casually overlook category. I don't know what possessed me to try and take a nap downstairs, or what convinced the little functioning corner of my brain that I would be able to get up again after a short rest. By the time Zadik is able to wake me, I realize that it's much, much later than I intended to stay down here. As I try to stand, my back protests and my knees buckle. I bite into my lip as the numbness starts to fade into pain. Fuck, how long have I been here? I try to stay as still as possible as the pain ebbs. I slept in an uncomfortable position. Lately, I've been sleeping at the desk more frequently than I like to admit. But it is far from comfortable, nor is it spacious enough for me to actually spread out. Even when I'm not using this space as a bedroom, my legs cramp up pretty easily. Or maybe it's less that I cramp easily and more that my knees know that they should be protesting several hours of an unnatural position. Still, no matter how much I rationalize the pain I'm in, it doesn't change the situation. I slept in the study last night. And it was last night, because when I make my way upstairs, I can see it is well past the second sun. Blue's probably so pissed at me. I don't blame him. I've been such an idiot. I can only imagine how this must look to him. I told him I'd join him last night, though in my defense, I really did think that I would be able to pry myself away from my uncomfortable desk in favor of my warm bed with my warm familiar. The familiar that probably hates me right now and wants nothing to do with me. There's a dull throbbing in my head, and just like that, I want to sleep again. My body hurts in a deep, primal way that makes the aches from the desk seem like the tiniest little abrasion. My mouth is dry, and the light from the windows is giving me the wildest sense of vertigo I've had in a long time. I have to lean against a wall to steady myself and rake in every fiber of self-control that I have not to throw up on the floor. I make tea. It's all I can do. I could make a sedative, something mild, something that would ensure that I sleep uninterrupted, but that thought frightens me. What if there was an emergency, or an accident that needed my attention? The only things that would really touch these kinds of symptoms would have me drugging myself halfway to unconsciousness, and I'm not ready to take pain medication for this. Stars. It sounds so stupid. Especially when I add more of my medicine to the tea. It's not good to skip days, I remind myself, but it all seems so wrong. I hate that I'm brewing more of what's turning me inside out and only adding things to try and assist with the side effects. It feels like I'm putting poison right in with my anti-inflammatory, anti-nausea medication. It's not bad, I remind myself. The brew helps me. It has since I was little, since my mother taught me how to make it. She'd shown me how to dry the leaves, how to grind and fire them until they could be turned into tea. It had always tasted bad, but she'd drunk it with me, and let me feast on the sweets the servants brought after I'd drained my cup. Not that it ever really got the taste out of my mouth, but the memory is warm and precious, just like my cup. Stars! My brothers had been so angry, but that time was special. It was ours. The song comes again, unbidden and unclear, distorted like it's coming from the far end of a cave. The acoustics are all wrong for the voices that clamor to sing, and only the bass notes of the crude instruments can be heard. The melody is familiar, so familiar. There's a pull at my chest that makes me want to sing with them. No, scream at the top of my lungs. This wasn't just a song. It was... I jolt as my eyes fly open, quickly reacquainting myself with the sight of Rosie's kitchen. My kitchen, I remind myself as I struggle to get my breathing under control. Stars, did I really fall asleep here at the table? If I did, it wasn't for very long. The light in the kitchen hasn't changed, but the ache in my chest and my head have risen to a sickening high. It only takes a minute before the sensations begin to fade. It doesn't get too bad if I can keep my heart rate down. If I can avoid physical and emotional stressors, I should be able to ride out the worst of the effects. I have to suppress a sigh at that. No exercise, no gardening, no upsetting contact with the outside world. I'd be happy at the prospect if I thought it was remotely possible, even if it does make me feel a little like how people describe the consorts at court. Stars, if they only knew. More state secrets and legislative pull passes through their silks than the Empire's steel. My cup's empty, and I realize that I must have finished my brew when I was lost in my head. I feel better, balanced, if not quite stable yet. At the very least, I don't feel like I'm going to throw up on anything. The pulsing behind my eyes is still there, as is the ache of my body, the throb of wounds that refuse to be forgotten. I wonder just how much mint I can take before it starts to make me more nauseous instead of less. Distantly, I can't wait for the numbness to kick in, that blissful state that occurs once I've fully adjusted to the Summa dosage. But for now, the thought is a bitter memory that makes my pulsing headache worse. Maybe I should take some pain pills. I don't, usually. I try to avoid them like the plague, and I haven't really used them in the past few years unless I truly need them. But I'm pretty sure that the situation I'm in right now qualifies. I haven't thought about pain meds since Thana, but I know the ones I used for him won't work. I need to be alert. I can't risk something that will make me even more sleepy. I think I have something one of my neighbors left me. Stars, at least a few months ago. Something for pain and inflammation, I think. We were moving a sofa into their house, and they had convinced themselves that I hurt my back in the process. They're just the cheap, over-the-counter, generic brand, but it's better than nothing. I can't use anything stronger. It's not really an option today. I have to meet Genevieve's parents tonight. I get to go to their villa in the capital, a prestigious honor even among the ranked nobility. I can't afford to be dulled. Then again, I really can't faint or throw up on their floors. I'll take a few before I get there. Just something to make it through the night. There's still so much left to do, and stars! I need clothes. This won't be like Genevieve's party for the class. I can't wear my military uniform again. It'll seem like that's the only suitable thing I have to wear. Though I suppose it's true in this case. I don't have anything to wear to a fancy event like this. I'm lucky Rosie kept my uniform all this time. I don't travel with expensive fabrics or rare materials. I've always preferred to live simply. But that's just not going to cut it tonight. If I'm going to play the part, I'm going to need to look the part. My mind drifts to the more traditional mage garb. It's what the Fontaines favor, even when they host high society. Their parties often turn into little dress-up games for the high nobles who would never wear such items on their own, but who wouldn't insult the family by calling it beneath them to dress up as a mage for the night. I've just received a rather rare piece, the outer layer that marks my completion of quals, and my accolades. I breathe out a sigh of relief. Really, there's nothing better to wear. If they haven't heard about my score, and there's no chance of that, it's a way to make sure they notice. It's the nice, passive way to brag that nobles like, just like wearing expensive silks or rare gems and pretending not to notice until someone asks. I still need an actual outfit, since I can't get away with just the outer robe, but at least I know that I'll be somewhat satisfactory, even if I have to play at dressing like a magister on such short notice. I try to rub away the dull pains on my brow. There's no way any respectable establishment will take a rush order like this, so I have to hope there's something nice in my size that will at least present the illusion that I'm not some low-class yokel. At the very least, I want to appear as someone more troublesome to get rid of. There's a pounding on the door that has my heart leaping up into my throat as I rush to answer it. "Shauna, what are you doing here?" I ask, trying not to show how flustered I am by her sudden arrival, or the prospect of having to interact with people. Ande's ears give a telltale little flick that lets me know I've missed the mark. "Love you too, big guy," she answers dryly, crossing her arms over her chest. "Oh, I didn't mean it like that, and you know it," I huff, but the pout doesn't go away. "And here I was, coming all the way over here just to give you a congrats and see if you got your commemorative robe yet, but you don't even want to see me," she continues, like she's presenting a case to an invisible jury, but I cut her off. "Shauna!" I stop myself, waiting until I can stifle the irritation in my voice before I continue. It's not her fault. It's the pain behind my eyes. "It's good to see you, no matter the occasion. I just thought you were busy with an exam today." "It's later, and I wanted to stop by and see you," she mutters, absently twirling a lock of her hair that had come out of her bun. When she wants something, she's usually a little more direct about it. I look over at Ande. Though he's harder to read in general, he usually doesn't have the same determination as Shauna to make a dramatic reveal. His expression seems pretty neutral. Nothing obvious weighing on his mind. So I have to assume nothing nefarious is happening behind my back that Shauna's trying to ease me into. At this point, she usually would have given up on the misdirection anyways. Something in my chest aches as I pull my gaze away from Ande, but at least this feeling is easier to identify. It's guilt, plain and simple. I'm not sure if Ande was there yesterday when I pulled Blue out of his class at the gym. I was too distracted to notice. I shouldn't have made him leave like that. It's the last time they were going to see each other until next semester, and I ruined it. Though, maybe I could make it up to him. "Shauna, so long as you're still headed to the school today, could I ask you a favor?" I ask hesitantly. There's no real reason for her to say yes. It's just a burden to her, especially on a day when she has her own exams to worry about. But if she's taking Ande in anyway, then she's going to have to leave him at the care center for a number of hours. Surely she wouldn't object. "Depends on what it is," Shauna hedges, even though her face betrays her interest. "Would you, with the assistance of the prettiest of pleases, consider taking Blue for the day?" I try to say it as sweetly as possible, but she still looks at me like I've lost my mind. "Okay, what the heck is going on here?" Her eyes narrow in suspicion, and I do my best not to flinch at her tone. "I shouldn't be able to pay you to take Blue away for the day." She's right. And under normal circumstances, I don't think I would have given up this time, but I've caused Blue a lot of trouble. I know it doesn't make up for it, that I'll probably spend the break making up for it, but I want to give him the chance to have a proper final day with his friends. At least, those that are still left. Plus, it might leave Blue in a more forgiving mood, given that I'm probably still in trouble for not joining him like I promised last night. Besides, it's not like I want to drag him around town today when he should get the chance to relax with friends. I have preparations to make for Genevieve's little family get-together, and as much as I'd prefer to have Blue with me, I don't exactly want him by my side as I pick out what I'm going to wear in front of my girlfriend's family. Stars, just the thought makes me want to shudder. Be that as it may, you'd be doing me an enormous favor here. I bite my lip and do my best to project innocence, but Shauna seems unfazed. "And?" she presses. "And I'll reward you with whatever you want?" I add confusedly, not quite sure exactly what she wants from me. Whatever it is, my answer is clearly unsatisfactory as she sighs and shakes her head. "Fine, I graciously accept, but I still want to know what the hell is going on here." "And I will tell you, in the excruciating level of detail that you prefer from your gossip, but later, when I have time," I assure her, but I must not be very convincing. "Fine," she grinds out, very clearly not happy. There's nothing else I can do but fall back on old habits. "There's food in the kitchen," I offer, waving them both inside. Ande follows with predictably more enthusiasm than Shauna, but it's enough to get her to stop frowning and sighing melodramatically at me. I have never been more thankful for Second Life quiche in my life. I haven't had too much time to dedicate to baking, but this little treat just cannibalizes anything that's left in the icebox. I have just enough time to serve tea and reheat the savory slices of the quince before Blue's wandering downstairs, looking delightfully sleep-ruffled. His hair is still askew from the way he must have been sleeping on the pillow, and his eyes are still half glazed over with tiredness. Distantly, I think it's unfair that he gets to look so cute in the morning. It has to be breaking some kind of rule. That sleepy haziness drains out of him as he takes in the sight of our guests. He rubs a quick hand over his eyes as he straightens up his posture and flushes a frankly adorable shade of pink. Maybe it's because he came down in my nightshirt. Miss Shauna! Ante! Blue's voice is still rough and deep from sleep, but the unspoken question of, "What are you doing here?" still lingers even as he bows. "Blue, how about you go get your bag, and I'll pack you a lunch?" I offer, and Blue straightens at my words. "Yes, was there a problem at school? Do we need to fix some paperwork, or—" He rambles, and I realize that my words were unclear. "No, Blue, you'll be going with Shauna and Ande today. I've got some things I need to attend to." I don't mean for it to sound mysterious, but what can I say? Sorry, I've got to go pick out some nice clothes. Don't want to make a bad impression on my fiancé's parents. "Only us?" Blue asks hesitantly, looking between Ande and Shauna carefully before drawing his gaze back to me. "Yeah, come on, Blue. It'll be just like that week Kara got suspended," Shauna adds jovially in an effort to improve the mood. I pray that she misses the way we both flinch. Just give me a moment." Blue nods, exiting the room without any further comment, trying to keep that strained smile on his face. I go to tell Shauna off, but her face is already in her hands, Ande patting her shoulder consolingly. I bite my lip and turn to follow Blue. It's not her fault. It's mine. I wait patiently by the door, watching Blue run around. He strips, getting dressed in more functional daily clothes before he pulls out his bag. He sees me. He obviously sees me. But he keeps his back to me as he shoves various things that he's got stored around the room into his bag. I wait, but he doesn't turn or try to address me. Still in trouble, I see. It shouldn't hurt this bad. I fucked up. I deserve more than a little silent treatment. "Blue?" I try to get his attention, but he just keeps on stuffing his bag. I should get him a new one. The thought comes to my mind without prompting. It was old when I gave it to him, and now that it's seeing actual use, it's starting to get a little frayed. Then again, maybe he's gotten attached to it, and a whole new bag won't be well received. Who do I think I am, that a new bag will make this all go away? I know it's stupid, but I just want this to go the way it had gone down in my head. I don't have any more exams. I shouldn't have any other pressing business. I just want to hold Blue. Spend the whole fucking day as lazily as possible in each other's company. Screw the Hunters and the Fontaines. Fuck the nobles and the politics. I just want to hold him. But I've got shit to do. I've got a party and a set of parents to survive. One last hurrah before I can close the doors and pretend that the rest of the world doesn't exist. More than anything, I need to be out of the public eye. I need to make sure that Blue is safe. He can be pissed at me all he wants, but this needs to be said. "Blue?" I watch as his ears twitch, indicating that he's listening, even though he looks terribly engrossed in folding something at the moment. I am actively trying to avoid being in the public eye, so if any other opportunities present themselves... "Master, I am truly very sorry about what happened. I didn't know," Blue interrupts, bowing low and tucking his ears down. He doesn't say more than that, just squeezes his eyes shut and holds his bow. "I know. My voice catches in my throat as I try to plan out my words better. "I didn't warn you that I was trying to keep a low profile. How could I have expected you to know? Besides, it's all taken care of. Or, at least, it will be." I feel like I'm tripping over my own words. Blue nods along with me, but I can tell he's not reassured. You have a good day with Ande and all the people in your class, okay? I feel bad ripping you out of there so fast, so apologize to them for me? I hear myself ask, and I nearly want to smack myself. It sounds so stupid. But at least Blue's shoulders have relaxed from their position by his ears. Thank you, Master, he whispers softly, and it's all I can do not to take him into my arms right there. I want to hug him. I want to hold him. But the second my arm reaches out, he flinches, and I hesitate. I pull my hand back to the side and pick up the scarf I'd given Blue yesterday. My touch is a little better received through another object. He doesn't startle as badly, just docilely accepts the way I wrap it around him. There's so much I want to say, but I just can't get my mouth to cooperate. Blue gives me another quiet, "Thank you," and there's really nothing left for me to do but pack up some food for him and see him off at the door. It's odd, being home alone, knowing that, as I watch Shauna's carriage drive off, there's no one else in the house. It's not something that I ever thought would bother me, but now, more than anything, I want to cry. This will be good for Blue. Spending the day, as crassly, or accurately, as Shauna had put it, as we had when I was suspended. It led to a transformative time for Blue. He came out of it a lot more confident, more sure of himself, in a way that I wouldn't have been able to achieve just holding his hand. His classes are what sparked that change in him, and I'm hoping that being in that atmosphere will help him realize that again. At least, until he gets back home. I doubt I'll be back by the time Shauna drops him off, but after that little misstep, there should be nothing else to worry about. Blue's had the run of the house before. He's capable and smart. I shouldn't worry. I wash the dishes as I force myself not to think about the emotions, wipe the table as I try not to think about anything other than the tasks at hand. I need to go get a mage's robe. I don't burden my mind with the thought of useless accessories. The outer robe is a better status symbol than any jewel I could find, and it'll serve me better, too. I'm unaccustomed to thinking about the displays that nobles usually have at the forefronts of their minds. I live pretty simply, and I'm proud of that. I don't need rare fabrics or precious metals or gems. The pretty, petty things that nobles amuse themselves with have never held my attention. I suppose that it's for the best. I don't have a lot of money to work with, not like the budget of the Fontaine family, but I've worked hard for a number of years preparing for school. Even without the nice little boost from Jet, I saved enough to cover a good portion of my expenses. Nevertheless, those costs have steadily risen with the addition of a new person in my life, and the extra credit I seem to be doing. I'm not in danger, but I do wonder how long I should wait before I start to look for a new job. I have access to a whole new sector of the city this time around. With my credits, I probably wouldn't have too much trouble finding a mage who wants an assistant. If only I could find a project that doesn't commit me to more than half my life. Spring will bring a whole new batch of herb profits. I suppose I shouldn't resign myself to being a magister's lackey just yet. It doesn't take long to find a decent tailor in the mage's district, even one that carries pre-made clothing to my specifications. There are plenty of options, although the outfits are much more complex than I'd imagined. Apparently, there are a lot more layers to it than I'd thought, a lot more intricate, twisted fabric that they really shouldn't expect to stay still while a person moves in it. I pick a design more suited to modesty than I normally would. The white underlayer covers me from neck to wrist, and the second, colored layer goes down to my ankles. Apparently, this layer is meant to be pleated and tied very particularly. I suppose that makes sense, as they tell me it's only the centermost piece that is meant to be seen. There's another layer after that. They offer patterns and solids, all complementary colors to what I've chosen so far. I pick the light one with gray, almost silver mountains rising from swirling clouds. The sleeves go down to my fingertips, and the fabric is surprisingly light for how thick it feels. It's quite soft, too. The belt, they insist, should have some color. I nod along with them, picking a green one from the rack. It's a pretty deep color. Green's always been Genevieve's color. She's my fiancée in this scenario. It would do me good to remember things like that. They swap out the solid color for a green that will complement the colors I've chosen. I thank them more profusely than I believe any other mage has, and they wave me out with smiles on their faces. I just hope I can remember half of the instructions they'd given me for putting this stuff on. The mage's district is surprisingly full of life. There's people bustling around, crystal shops and supply stores open and beckoning people inside. There's no terrible amount of rushing or clamoring, and not everyone here moves with purpose. Some people are just enjoying their day. I wonder if there's anything special I can do with Blue. He'd liked the trip to the artsy district of the city, and he's technically already been here. If this were the Heshinden break, we would have a lot more time to play around with. I'd be able to arrange for a trip to the coast like I promised, have Blue taste actual seafood, though that might spoil him. He'd never be satisfied with the stuff we get this far inland ever again. I can't help but chuckle. Blue needs every ounce of spoiling I can spare. As it is, Quinium holds the coldest months of the year, hardly the appropriate time to visit the coast. That, and all of the touristy things, will be closed. Hell, most of the coast goes into hibernation mode. Would he resent me for that? I know he said he wanted to spend more time with me, but I'm not good company. Not really. He deserves a lot better, so it's my obligation to at least try. It's disturbingly easy to relax around Blue, but it's also easy to forget. Easy to say the wrong thing and move too fast, too close, and the fear in his eyes is almost more than I can take. I just don't want to make things worse. This is the first time we've had actual free time together, without school or deadlines functioning as a massive part of our lives. The only time that we've been this unrestrained is when I first got him. There's a pang in my heart at that thought. Blue had been, I want to say different, but that's not really true, is it? Blue hasn't changed. Not really. He's just the same as he always was, as he would have been, getting proper care. He's learned to be more vocal, take initiative, have some confidence in himself. I couldn't be more proud. But it's not because of me. That was all Blue. It was always a part of him. He'd just never gotten the chance to act on it. I should be proud that he's speaking up more, and I am. But I'd feel even better if it wasn't constantly reminding me of all my incompetence at trying to take care of him. How the hell did I not know that cats have bad up-close vision and can't taste sweets? I'm proud he told me. I just wish he would have told me sooner. It feels like I've made so many mistakes, like I'll never be able to make up for them, especially when I keep making them. Would Blue even like a trip? He likes being at home, even though he sometimes gets a little uncomfortable with all the attention the Almacs pay him. He'd like the fish, but when we went out last, he wasn't so good with the people, though that was probably my fault. He'd performed spectacularly under pressure before, and he'd shown he has no problems being around people at Genevieve's party. Maybe I'm overthinking it. We don't need to go anywhere. I have time to make actual plans. We don't have to rush into anything. This will be Blue's first actual candle lights. I don't usually like going out on the night, the holiday itself, but the vigil is always a beautiful ceremony. I'm sure Blue would like it. And if he doesn't, then we can have our own little vigil at the house. I'm sure he'd like to do something for Opal, even if it's small. I can feel the corners of my mouth pulling upwards unconsciously. I'll have to find Blue a present. It takes me far too long to try and recreate the arrangement the attendants at the shop had made, but eventually I have some measured success. Even if I spend far too long trying to make my hair presentable, it almost looks a shade darker, and that worries me as I study my reflection closely in the mirror. It's practically unnoticeable, but I still hope that it's just my imagination. I don't dare bring my charm into the den of magisters. They'd sniff it out before I even got through my introductions. My clothes do a good enough job at hiding my body anyway. I made sure of that. Genevieve sends a carriage, and while I have a minor heart attack at the thought of riding to the Fontaine estate with a constant back and forth of casual threats, or worse, unbearable silence, the worry quickly fades into nothing as I realize there's no one in the carriage. They just sent one to pick me up. I down the pain meds and will myself not to think as the carriage starts on its way. I'm pretty sure we're going to the manor, not the townhouse, so I have about an hour to breathe, meditate, and wait for my pills to kick in. By the time the estate is in view, my headache has receded so much I can nearly think clearly, and the pain in my body is just a distant hum. The Fontaine Manor is a sprawling mansion located outside of Capital City. It sits on 400 acres of beautifully manicured lands and extends into the property's forest, which is mainly used for game hunting. The structure itself is only 3 stories tall, but it more than makes up for it by how far out they built. It's made of a white limestone that almost manages to look delicate against the deep gray roofing tiles. I recognize the veins on the roof, though I can't identify exactly what they measure. They look just like the ones at school. There's a scary-looking gate that I have no doubt is cursed should any robber be unfortunate enough to even attempt a break-in. Though for us, it swings open without anyone even having to touch it. I have to wonder if that's an enchantment on the gate or on the carriage. Hell, maybe it's both. I've never been to a magister's house. Even past the gate, it takes several minutes to get to the actual house. There's a set of polished white stairs that lead to the frankly ridiculously sized oak doors where a receiving line is waiting for me with just a portion of the complex's staff. Genevieve's parents aren't there, but that's to be expected. More surprising is the fact that Genevieve isn't there. The servants bow as I make my way past them, trying to maintain a somewhat presentable image and make it up the stairs without tripping on my robe. I'm shown inside by one of the house stewards. The man is old, but very dignified. He's probably served the Fontaines his entire life. I wonder what he thinks of me, the odd, upstart nobody dating his young mistress. I dismiss the thought as soon as it comes. He's far too proper to express his distaste. I'm a guest, low-born or not. He'll treat me with respect for tonight, even if he'd turn up his nose at me if we met on the streets. Surprisingly, I'm not shown to a sitting room or anything like that. Instead, I'm shown to another set of big doors that are opened with far too much ease for their size. They've got to be enchanted, but any other thoughts fly out of my mind as I take in what had been hiding behind them. It takes me a second to realize exactly what I'm looking at, the immense vivariums behind the wide panes of glass. It all looks like it's one big tank curling around the room, but the pillar-like supporting columns seem to cut through the tanks and separate them into individual biomes for different types of life. Some of the water is treated, seemingly colored in different hues, and I have no doubt that some tool is painstakingly monitoring the levels of acidity, ammonia, and general nitrates to keep the water chemistry within a functionable range. This place is incredible, with all the different coral and brightly colored fish living right next to each other, each in their own little biomes, especially considering the shadows that flit around, hinting at larger creatures. My mind clicks with a sudden clarity, and I'm startled out of my shocked daze. Genevieve's brother, the one who was studying abroad, the marine researcher. This is the brother's aquarium. A fact that really should be obvious given the man standing in front of the main display, looking far too pleased with himself. I shut my mouth with what I hope isn't an audible click, trying to control myself as I feel my face flush. So much for not looking like some country bumpkin. The parents are here, Alphinius and Regina Fontaine. Stars, they look like they're sitting for a portrait. They're reclining, looking every bit the impressive, imposing nobles that they are, on one of a half-dozen embroidered settees while the sun is still standing by the central floor-to-ceiling tanks. They're much too regal for this to be unplanned, though I suppose I don't know enough about them to say such a thing. They've certainly never been caught slouching at a public event. Stars, this feels like an ambush. Genevieve's brother smiles at me, somewhat pityingly, as though he's about to bear witness to a slaughter, yet he's the only one who knows. "Ah, you must be this Kara we've heard so much about. To think I could meet you so shortly after returning home." Yeah, right. I'd put money down that he left his post early so that he could be a part of this. "All good things, I hope," I reply with a smile of my own. My only asset is the way they don't perceive me as a threat, and I plan to play on that as long as I possibly can. Still, that doesn't mean I have to fall into obvious traps. I turn to the parents respectfully and fold myself into the correct bow. "Lord and Lady Fontaine, I am so incredibly honored to be in your presence. I cannot thank you enough for the invitation into your home." I don't lift my head to see, but the fact that there's hesitation tells me that I've succeeded in throwing them off their rhythm. "Oh, you weren't expecting an educated boy, now were you?" "The pleasure is all ours. Imagine our surprise when the man Genevieve's been speaking of turns out faithful to the stories," the lady of the house drawls, talking so cleverly around the specifics that I wonder if I should thank them or be insulted. Thankfully, Lord Fontaine continues his wife's thoughts without allowing me to remark upon the statement. "And dedicated, not only to his studies, but to our Genevieve as well." He nods to himself like he's agreeing with what he's just said, and his wife giggles behind her hand with the demure refinement that the act should not have. "What?" "Truthfully, we did not believe you existed as anything more than a fanciful story in our daughter's mind," he continues. "She kept putting off a formal meeting, as you must have known, but even the most vivid of imaginations cannot sit for the national exam." I think I'm starting to get a picture of what he's talking about. They watched the scores come out, and when they saw my name, they realized they couldn't put off a formal meeting anymore. My score on the exam is probably the social duress that forced his hand. He had to invite me. "And to turn down the honors symposium just to meet with us," the mother continues, spinning some version of my accolades that I know is going to end up as a dig against my character, so I tune it out. I'm not surprised that they knew what I turned down to meet them tonight. I don't know how they know. I don't know who told them, but I am not surprised. When people like this want to know something about someone, they have all kinds of ways of digging up all kinds of things. Suddenly, it makes a little more sense that they'd have this get-together the same night as the symposium. I don't remember seeing Genevieve's name among the highest honors rankers, and as far as I could tell, those were the only people asked to the event. It's a point of family pride. They are the highest-ranked family that boasts mages. If they publicly acknowledged that their daughter didn't get invited to a prestigious mage-centric event solely because she didn't score high enough, it's enough to make any family capable of the feat have an event the same night to save face. She couldn't have possibly gone to that event. We had something else to do that took precedence. I mean, it's exactly the excuse I used to get out of the event. I suppose I can understand the reasoning. I could never have missed the chance to finally meet the lovely people responsible for— stars, it hurts to say. My Genevieve! I fear I've built it up in my heart so much it just might burst. I speak carefully, keeping my mind focused on my posture and tone. They would probably like to see my heart burst, though maybe not. Maybe they would rather it happen outside and save the servants an afternoon of scrubbing to try and get the bloodstains out of the floor. Well, I hope it doesn't detract from your studies too much. The father purses his lips, and I clench my teeth together, smiling despite the dig. Oh, I just got out of a long-term project. I thought hastily rushing into a new one might be a little bit negligent of me. I answer evenly, dipping my head respectfully and doing my damnedest not to allow my fingers to fidget, even under the covering of the sleeves. They'd notice. I know it. Negligent? The mother parrots back, like she's never heard the word before. Well, I want to give my best work to my every project, and as it stands now, I do need a bit of time to recover, especially considering how closely the project's end date ran with the end of the semester. Besides, I've barely had the proper time to spend with your daughter. I think my side of our courtship has been rather lacking because of the circumstances," I add, turning my face away like I'm torn up about it, too ashamed of my inadequacies to even meet the eyes of my fiancé's parents. That shuts them up. Idly, I think I might have just managed to do more than those two goons ever could to further my career as a mage. I have no doubt the Fontaines would send all the internship opportunities they could to me in order to keep me away from their daughter. Alphinius recovers first, clearing his throat before even attempting to speak again.
"I hope you do forgive us for our appearance. We were just listening to Aidan speak on some of the specimens he's collected from his trip and his preliminary findings."
Aidan, the marine specialist. I don't know a lot about him, just that Genevieve mentioned once that he had a Hydra familiar, though they are nowhere to be seen now. It doesn't surprise me. Jen had said this would be a familiar-free party, though apparently the definition of familiar is only extended to those who are trained. Aidan has no qualms about showing off a number of the oddities he's personally collected. Species that are rather rare, or ones that are still being studied for their potential, lie in his aquarium. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. They're being cared for. Their tanks receive quite a lot of maintenance and cleaning, that much is obvious at a glance. But I still don't know what to make of the creatures in the tanks themselves. They weren't raised for this, if the stories that Aidan tells are to be believed. He found or trapped all of the types he managed to collect. I have to wonder just how different it is for them than it is for Blue. Blue was raised knowing his position, whereas these things were not. They don't even have the ability to run. They're hundreds of miles away from the oceans they came from. The tour goes on, Aidan insisting that he likes the freakish ones the most, though he does have a sweet spot for the Atolla jellyfish he caught almost a year ago. His mother's favorite, he explains. I have to actively fight my body's instinctual urge to flee as he shows me his treasures of the deep, including a cookie-cutter shark, a fangtooth, and an anglerfish type of familiar that I will be seeing in my nightmares. The parents simply nod along, watching their son passively as he exposits about their habits and natural properties and activities. I have to wonder if they're actually numb to it, or if they're putting on a good front. Hell, I like the ocean. I know there's a lot of fucked up shit that lives in there, but I hadn't thought that there would be corresponding species of familiars.
"My personal favorite for this round was this little gem," Aidan says,
leaning in close and pulling me in front of one of the bigger, taller tanks closer to the center of the room.
"The bastard moray."
He says it like I should be impressed by the name alone. I guess I am. I'm impressed that the scientist who named it still has a job. The creature inside looks vaguely normal, in the crude, relative way that I seem to be comfortable using the term nowadays. Their skin is a bright yellow, dappled with brown spots. Their fingers are webbed with a delicate-looking mesh. They don't have legs. Rather, they have a powerful-looking tail that is not being utilized as it floats, dreamily slow in the water before us. It's almost disturbing how cute the creature looks. Aquatic familiars do have a tendency to be more fragile-looking, but the effect is only enhanced by their wide, dark eyes and a cute little mouth that I realize, only as it drifts past us, is not its actual mouth. Its maw seems to be just under its jaw, where I can see a half-dozen sharp, pointed teeth protruding.
"Bastard from the Urit?" I ask numbly. "As in biting the hand that feeds you?"
Suddenly, the nut-job scientist doesn't seem so crazy. I gather from the inexpertly hidden glare Aidan fixes me with that I wasn't supposed to know that.
"Well, yes.
Such an odd language. Did you know," he continues, and many of the facts he seems proud to rattle off I actually do know, much to his frustration. He shows off several more specimens, and we've made our way through almost the whole exhibition when I finally have to ask. I don't want this to be some grand reveal at the end. I don't think I could handle it.
"What? No mermaids?" "Everyone knows mermaids don't actually exist," he answers, quirking a brow.
Well, yeah, no, I fluster, but Aiden loves to hear himself talk so much he cuts me off.
But my collection is so extensive it does seem to border into the realms of myth, doesn't it?
He takes my moment of confusion and turns it into a compliment for himself. I don't mind giving it to him. He seems to need it. Absolutely. I nod along, doing my best to look starstruck as he pulls me to the next area. Oh, dear. It's nearly time for dinner, and Genevieve still isn't back yet. Regina places a finger to her temple and shuts her eyes like it's the worst thing that has ever happened to anyone and deserves a moment of silent meditation. Back? I can't help but ask when it seems no one is going to elaborate.
Our dear daughter just insisted on getting a moment of riding in today,
Alphinius explains, putting a comforting hand over one of his wife's like he's trying to support her through her grieving. Ah, I've heard just how talented Genevieve is at the sport. It is most impressive. I lie. I haven't heard anything about Genevieve's skills, not that I've cared much to listen. But if it's a skill her parents are willing to bring up, then it's a safe bet that she's fairly accomplished in the field. The parents preen, and I know I've struck the nail on the head.
We'll send for her,
the father says, and is halfway through motioning for a servant when I step in. Oh, no, sir, please let me go. I would love to be the one to greet her when she returns. I'm playing the love-struck fool, I might as well commit. And if it gets me out of this showroom, well then, that's really just an added bonus, now isn't it? The stables require very little navigational talent to find, and that's saying something on this large of an estate. In fact, I need more help finding my way out of the main house than I do finding the stables, though the servants point it out to me like I'm blind anyways. Apparently, the building off to the side of the main house had been the stables all along, even though it was large and lavish enough that I had assumed it was a detached servants' quarters. Regardless, the building is blessedly empty once I find my way in. There's only the horses here, and I can't help but feel relieved to have a moment to collect myself. I'm glad for the pain medication. I wouldn't have been able to get this far without it. I doubt I would have made it through any of this. Score 1 for foresight. The robes are not as comfortable as they were when I'd arrived. So much movement has made the fabric pull and come loose from the tentative way the sash had held everything in place. I take a moment to readjust my clothes, untying the sash and restacking the layered garments. It feels so odd on my skin, the way these clothes hang, the way they're meant to be worn. It's strange. Still, I suppose I have to get used to wearing them. I am a mage, after all. This should hardly be the last time I ever dress like one. Or maybe it will be. The panicked thought races through my mind as I tie the sash back into place, only for everything to fall right back out of order. Stars, did I do something wrong? The sash felt wrong, but that was the easiest part of the whole process, right? I'm re-examining the folded plaits when the door slams open and I freeze in my tracks. It's not Genevieve, and for that I thank every star in the sky. Imagine what kind of scene that would be with me half undressed. Instead, the person in the doorway is taller, scruffier, and a damn sight plumper than Genevieve. The dappling of oddly colored freckles takes a moment to translate in my mind. She's an Esche, though that much should probably have been clear from the soft gray of her skin. Her hair's cut short and kept out of the way with a piece of braided leather. She's well-muscled, dressed in a pair of well-worn coveralls and a thick, mud-caked boots. There's a grain bag in her arms that must weigh 50 pounds, but she doesn't seem at all fazed by the weight. "Oh, I'm so terribly sorry. I didn't expect anyone else to be in here," she apologizes as she makes her way inside. The odd twang in her voice is readily apparent. "You don't have to mind me. I'm just—" I try to introduce myself, but she just barrels right on. "You're that Kara fella, ain't you?" Her words make it a question, but her tone confirms it's a fact, even without my input. "Yes, that would be me." It's all I can do to nod and stuff myself back into my robes and try to look somewhat presentable. "I figured as much." She gives a little smile as she looks me over, then, "You want some help with that?" She gestures to my sash far too casually for someone who's got a 50-pound bag of grain in her other hand. Well, she seems to take that as a yes, as she dumps the bag where it needs to go and comes over to me. Oh, don't you worry. This ain't my first time pulling a mage's outfit together, and it sure as salt ain't gonna be the last, she says as she pulls my clothes back into their proper state, batting away my hands when I try to help. There's nothing else I can do but stand with my arms outstretched like a mannequin for dressing. But she's obviously practiced. There's no way I can turn down her help. You've tied mage's robes before? I ask, more to say something than out of actual curiosity. I'm feeling oddly flustered as she fixes my clothing with absolutely no shame. I can feel her hands everywhere, but it's all practiced professional movements. So much so I feel foolish for asking the question. Just about 10,000 times, but they keep adding patterns and fancy stitching that you're not supposed to cover up, so at least it's interesting. She answers with more attention and warmth than I've managed to get from anyone else on the premises. Have you worked for the Fontaines long? I can't help it as the question tumbles out. It's pretty personal, and probably something servants are not supposed to talk with guests about, but she continues like it's nothing. Well, I'd say so, just about damn near my entire life. I was very lucky to be taken in by them. My folks were really only working here part-time when they died. Probably would have been nothing left for me if they hadn't done what they did. She answers so openly that I feel wrong, even suspecting that she might be lying. Well, that sounds very nice of them. I try for neutral ground in case she's exaggerating and she's not really allowed to speak on her truer feelings, but my sash just gets pulled until it's too tight as she narrows her eyes. And what were you expecting? She asks. She's not quite threatening me, but her tone is a fair bit more angry than confused. No, do you know the family well? I ask, deciding to change directions. She purses her lips, but seems to accept the change in topic. She hooks a finger under the sash and pulls it back out to a workable length. I take a deep breath and try not to give in to the urge to rub the sore area on my stomach that just got crushed. Well, sure. Damn near grew up right next to the little miss of the estate, she answers, tying off the sash in a better knot than I managed at home. Really? I ask incredulously. I cannot imagine this bubbly, open person growing up with Genevieve. Of course! Why do you think I learned how to tie those damn fancy robes? She chuckles to herself like she's reliving a particularly funny scene. She tried to get me in the house so many times, tried to take me as a personal assistant. She shakes her head at that. Boy, I was not built to sit and fan. A sentiment that she seems to demonstrate as she picks up the bag of grain again to set it in a pile of others just like it. The Genevieve that I know wouldn't mind forcing someone into a position they were uncomfortable in. So you like it here? I hedge. I don't know why I'm pressing. I know the answer I'm going to get, but still, hearing it seems so strange. Course I do. I've always been just a little better with the beasts than with people anyhow. Besides, Miss Clarabelle's much prettier than any painted-up debutante waiting in chambers. Wouldn't you agree? She hums, patting the horse to her left on the neck as it huffs and whinnies at her antics. Honestly, I'm lucky the little miss of the house took such an interest in horse-rearing. She says it more to herself than to me as she strokes gently down Clarabelle's mane. Suddenly, I'm not so sure that the horse-rearing is what the little miss of the house is interested in. Listen, sir. She turns away from the horse, but keeps her hand on it like she needs the stable presence. I know it's not my place to say, but do take care of Miss Whatever she was going to have me promise gets cut off as Genevieve rides into the stable. Corey! Corey! She calls, continuing on as she rides her horse right into the stable. I think Jubilee needs her shoes reset. The whole... Her voice cuts off as she sees me. She's in her riding clothes. Her hair's ruffled, her boots are muddy, and with her eyes blown wide in shock, she looks so much more human than she usually does. What are you doing here? She barely regains enough composure not to hiss at me. I'm terribly sorry. Your parents had sent me to collect you for dinner. I smile up at her and try not to feel too pleased at the 2 spots of color that have rapidly bloomed on her cheeks. All right, just give me a moment. She straightens up in her saddle, trying to recover some of that noble air she'd been missing when she came galloping in. I stand there, willing myself not to smirk as the tips of her ears grow red, and she snaps, "Alone, please! Wait outside!" I oblige, leaving the stable through the wide-open doors, but going right to the open window of one of the pens. I have no idea which horse lives here, aside from the fact that he is too friendly. He trots immediately up to the human by his window and keeps trying to solicit pets. I oblige him, as it's still the vantage point to hear what exactly is going on inside the walls. "Hey, did he do anything to you?" Genevieve asks, startling me with the genuine concern I hear in her voice. "No, miss. Very kind man you've brought home," the stable hand, Corey, remarks without much of the enthusiasm she's been displaying with me. She doesn't sound like she's disapproving, just that she's being more formal, less expressive. I didn't... I never thought I'd see the day Genevieve stuttered, but the moment is over almost as quickly as it had begun. "Corey, the horseshoe, it needs to be replaced," Genevieve orders in a clipped tone that's making me feel like I've done something wrong, despite having nothing to do with her horse. It doesn't affect Corey, though. She just responds with a respectful, "As you wish," and a silence falls over the stable. "Well, if that's all..." Genevieve sighs, but apparently that is not all, because Corey speaks up again. "M'lady, the saddles, I need more of the treating oil you like to keep them maintained." Corey says it with a practiced ease that makes me feel like the line is rehearsed, but Genevieve doesn't call her out. "Well, it can't be helped," she sighs. "If Mother and Father insist on dragging their feet, then I'll have to accompany you myself." "As you wish." Corey's tone is just as respectful, but I swear I can hear her smiling. Genevieve comes out a moment later, but it's more than enough time for me to pretend I haven't been listening, though it is harder to keep my face in that pleasantly disinterested neutral state. "You!" She says it like an accusation. "Yes, my lady," I answer, and she bristles, but regains some of her haughtiness. "They could have sent any servant for me," she huffs, coming to stand nose to nose with me. I suppose if I was in my right mind I would find the situation terrifying, like she wants me to, but at the moment I can only smile. "Oh, but, my lady, you were late for my arrival, and I was so worried that something might have happened to you." I smile, and I can hear the tenuous fibers of control holding Genevieve's temper growing taut. "I will not be hearing anything that you've seen repeated, will I?" She asks it like a threat. I did not know you wanted so many in the dark about your riding skills. But if you don't want anyone to know, I'll keep your secret. I look at her, trying my best to conjure up that lost, confused expression that Blue does so much better than me. Whatever facsimile I manage to reproduce, Genevieve's burning glare falters, and I realize belatedly as she backs down that she actually thinks I didn't eavesdrop on her. I mean, it doesn't change the facts. I won't tell on her. This kind of infatuation with a servant can lead to bad things, but given how flagrant they are, I have to imagine a large portion of the staff know, and are committed to keeping the secret. Or tonight was a very off night. "Yes, I don't want to have to show off. The horses are mine, and while they are a respectable hobby, I don't really want to have to enter competitions and things like that. Don't you think it's funny how they tell us how to live?" The words are out of my mouth before I can stop them, but they feel so good to say I can't stop myself. "What?" she asks, probably, suitably, surprised with my words. "Which hobbies are suitable, what kind of fun is honorable enough to have, how we're all delinquent kids until we've turned into their clones." She knows what I'm talking about. She can look at me with those wide eyes all she wants, but she knows what it means to be a failure in her parents' eyes. whether they know it or not, whether it's just been implied or actively threatened. She knows what it is to want, and to be told it's wrong. I just can't believe it took me so long to notice it. I wave my hand in some non-committal gesture. I have no idea where the sudden angry questions came from, but I want to take it back. This was supposed to be me proving I'm docile as a lamb, not anything else. Kara? I can hear the hesitance in her voice, so I drop all my thoughts and backtrack, slapping that oblivious smile back on my face like we've been talking about nothing at all. It's nothing. I was reading a log of the most common hobbies of the nobility. In the log, it was just funny. Children did what their parents did, 9 times out of 10. I thought it was interesting. Don't you? The corner of Genevieve's mouth quirks in a tilted half-smile. My mum wanted to breed horses, back in the day. I nod, as though that had been the whole point of this. I walk Genevieve back to the house, she changes, and we are escorted to the dining room by another attendant. I think it's because we're both horribly familiar with the games that the night goes so well. We talk for hours and hours about nothing of substance, debate things that don't matter, and listen to facts and trivia that will never mean what it means to the person spouting it. I didn't expect it to be so familiar. I led a spirited conversation with 2 of the most influential mages in the country, and I swear that if my life depended on it, I couldn't come up with a single thing that I actually said at that table. The evening's only remarkable in that nothing goes wrong. I was so prepared for something catastrophic that by the time Genevieve's escorting me back to the carriage that will take me home, there's a nervous trembling in my hands that won't accept the success of the night. I don't think I've ever seen a better look on my parents' faces. Genevieve manages around a burst of what sounds like genuine laughter, wiping the beginnings of a tear from the corner of her eye. I'm just glad you found that as enjoyable as I did, I answer mildly, enjoying this new side of her that I've never seen. Stars! I was sure my brother was going to turn you into a pufferfish! She gasps and tries frantically to stop her giggling. Idly, I'm curious what has her so unrestrained. There was no alcohol at the table, was there? Well, that's what he gets for trying to pull trivia facts on me to sound smart, I defend myself, not quite able to keep the smile off my own face. I don't think you understand what you've done. She quiets herself to a conspiratorial whisper. The man will be memorizing manuals for days for new information that you might not know. Well, if you would have warned me he was such a sore loser, I would have pretended not to understand the difference between zooplankton and phytoplankton. No, then I would have gotten the patented dead-to-us stare from my parents for the next 2 months for picking an uneducated bumpkin. I laugh with her, but her chuckle dies off first. What's wrong? I ask. I'm surprised at the genuine concern I'm feeling. I like this Genevieve more than the one I'm used to. I like her honesty, the way she's alive, speaking without calculation or consequence. All of it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... She starts rambling, so I cut her off. I'm not offended, I reassure her. No, not just that. All of it. I was born into it. I'm stuck here, and I figured I might as well reap the benefits where I could, but... She stops herself, but we can both hear the unspoken, "Why are you here?" Don't worry about it. I pat her on the shoulder and shoot her a lazy grin as I pull myself up into the carriage. I'm just glad you got to laugh tonight. Kara, wait! She calls out, but cuts herself off. I pause with one foot on the running board of the carriage as I wait for her to speak. Yes, Jen? I prompt, hoping that it will help spark her desire to speak. She looks at me. Those piercing green eyes that had been so threatening when we met are now so full of emotions I can't read that my head swims. She bites her lip and shakes her head. It's nothing, she says eventually. I'll see you next semester. The ride back is a nauseating blur. More than enough to make me certain that there was alcohol at dinner that I've somehow managed to forget about. It's a miracle that I get into the house. The pills have long since worn off, the heavy ache returning to all the parts of my body in intervals. By the time I get to the couch in the living room, it's all I can do to hope that I pass out in its general proximity. I'm out before I can tell if I've been successful. Morning comes just as harshly as any other day, uncaring of the facts of my life and unkind in the way it shines light in my eyes. Stars! My head is pounding. My whole body is aching, cramping in protest of the terrible position it slept in last night. Déjà vu. Just like last night, I've made the same mistake again. Blue's upstairs, and I, local idiot, have decided to sleep in the decidedly blue-bereft downstairs. The worst choice of this lifetime. One that angers not only me, but leaves Blue in a bad mood as well. I let Blue go back to school yesterday. A nice little trip with Shauna to see his friends and have a proper farewell. Was it a good idea? Did he have a nice time, or did all those other familiars give him trouble? I don't doubt I made a scene last time, with our exit as hasty as it was. I don't doubt I was the subject of speculation. Come to think of it, I don't really know many of the familiars in Blue's class. He hasn't told me much about them, or given me any specifics that I didn't ask for. Still, I feel terrible not knowing much about something that Blue's so dedicated to. I suppose it'll be a good conversation starter, at least while I feel so nervous at just the thought of being in the same room as him. I try not to cringe as I remember the disaster of talking with Blue yesterday. I just wanted to apologize and make him feel better. I wanted to give him the chance to go and talk to his friends without his dumbass owner stepping in on his sacred territory. But I've made the same mistake the second night in a row and left him to sleep alone. Any goodwill I had accumulated with the back-to-school stunt has been promptly demolished. I wonder if Shauna stopped for food on her way back from school last night. There's pitiful little in the icebox, so I doubt he'd be able to scrounge up anything that would have passed as a meal otherwise. I wonder if the day out gave him the reprieve I had hoped for, if he'd been able to relax, or if I caused too much trouble among his students for that. I hope he got to relax at home at least. Stars, I wasn't being delicate when I came home last night. I hope I didn't wake him when I came crashing in. I bite my lip as I try to control my breathing and force away the stress headache I can feel blooming. I might not like it, but I need to talk to him. I've put it off long enough. I can't let it fester like this. Right. I need to face the music. Blue? I call, hearing my voice echo uncomfortably loud in the house. There's no answer. Blue doesn't usually just ignore me, but I suppose I deserve it. I basically pawned him off on my friend the other day so I could go meet my girlfriend's parents. He has every right to be mad. And instead of spending a nice night with him, I passed out on the couch, like the wonderful person I am. I trudge up the stairs, ignoring the burn in my legs, the pounding in my head. I've put this off too long already. We need to have this talk. The door is closed, and I try to convince myself that it is not adult behavior to bang my head against the wall until it feels better. The second sun is already in the sky. Blue should be up by now. But even though he's not the lightest of sleepers, he doesn't sleep through yelling. I call for him again, knocking on the door just to be sure. He doesn't respond, and I try not to feel bad. Blue, I know we've been having a little bit of a rough time, and I know I haven't been doing my best, but we need to talk. I wanted to make sure you were doing all right. Did you have a good time with your friends? The question bounces around in the silence that follows, hammering home just how stupid it was. My face heats, and suddenly I'm glad that I'm on the other side of the door. I know I'm kind of a dumbass, but I swear on all the stars in the sky, Blue, I care about you. More than you will ever believe. I want us to be better. Okay? I need us to be better. The silence bears down on me, caustic and suffocating. I can feel my heart thundering in my chest, and it's all I can do not to scream. It only takes a second, but the urge is stamped down entirely. Screaming is useless. It'll scare Blue and hurt my throat, and it'll probably make my headache that much worse. Okay, yeah, I guess that's what I can expect. I mean, why would you believe me? I'm just a crazy guy who picked you up one day. You don't have to reciprocate my feelings. You know that, right? I won't force you to do anything, and I won't act on my idiocy. I swear. You'll be safe. You shouldn't have to fear everything, and me on top of it. I press myself up against the door, but I hear nothing. Just that same bone-chilling silence. I hate the sound of blood rushing in my ears. If I could quiet that, then maybe I could pick up what the hell's going on with Blue. Blue, say something, I offer cautiously, but when he does nothing, my voice hitches in desperation. Blue, let me know you're okay. I try the door handle, so relieved when it turns, when I realize Blue hasn't locked me out, that I just about start sobbing in the doorway. I stop myself before I can turn it all the way and toss the door open. Blue, last chance, I warn as sternly as my trembling voice allows. If you want to be alone, just say so. Otherwise, I'm coming in. Nothing. My heart's hammering in my chest as I swing the door open. The bed's not made, but even with the sheets strewn about, there's no doubt. Blue's gone.